Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're coming to you live from the United Nations in Vienna, where survivors of human trafficking are gathering for Voices of Resilience, the first ever global forum for human trafficking survivors, organized by the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. I'm Melissa Fleming, and I'm the Undersecretary General for Global Communications. And I'm thrilled to be here in Vienna this week to take part in this and to have viewers joining us from all corners of the world. Please drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. I'm sure you're watching because you know that human trafficking is a serious global issue, and it continues to afflict millions of people worldwide. Perhaps it's happened to you. Every day, countless victims are trapped and exploited in sweatshops, in restaurants, factories, or they're forced into prostitution. Shockingly, 3 out of 10 victims are children. At the UN, we work with countries to end human trafficking by strengthening laws, training police and prosecutors, protecting victims, and raising public awareness. Now more than ever, we need also to listen to survivors and also get advice from them to put their needs first. Their voices should guide us in how to stop this crime. Today, I am honored to be joined by 2 incredible human trafficking survivor leaders who bring powerful perspectives and inspiring stories. And first, we have Frey A. Worko, a prominent Ethiopian survivor of human trafficking and also a passionate advocate for the rights of migrant workers. She is the founder and executive director of Phenot Charitable Organization, one of Ethiopia's pioneering survivor-led groups. And joining us also is Laurent Ziegler, an Austrian photographer and visual artist who has authored the moving book, The Children of My Memory, that shares his very personal journey of healing and transformation after his exploitation. Welcome, Frey and Laurent, and thank you so much for being with us today. Can you hold up your book so everyone can see it? Thank you. Frey, in 2021, the United Nations organized survivors as key agents of change in the fight against human trafficking. Where are we falling short, and what more can be done to end this crime?
Thank you so much. Even though UN accepted us survivors as key change makers, I think where we fall short is when it comes to implementation. Usually, survivors are not being included, especially in the continent of Africa and in respective regions. We are not being included in funding and in projects. Usually, we've been approached just to consult for a short time, but all for research, such kind of things. But later on, when there is a project implementation, we're not getting involved. And when it comes to survivor-led organizations, we don't get the support that we needed because we are a very unique organizations. When I founded Phenot, it's not because I know the world of NGO, it's because I'm lived experience expert, and I want to share my experience with the world and other survivors and victims. I don't want them to get through what I have been through, and I want to prevent from the root cause, human trafficking. But when it comes to implementation, sometimes even the government, they don't involve us as much as they have to. So I think we need to work on a better tools to include survivors, especially when it comes to economic reintegration. We need to be empowered for us to make a change. Because if I am struggling and I'm not empowered with education and with finance, how can I make a change? How can I help my other survivors? So I think this is the reason. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's obvious. I'm hoping that's changing today because again, here at the United Nations in Vienna, at UNODC is hosting this first ever forum, and your voice, both of your voices, are heard today, and it's absolutely vital. You know best what survivors need, and also what survivor advocates like you could benefit from to empower your work, because obviously people will listen to you if you're trying to prevent what happened to you to happen to them. So we'll get back to you in a bit, but Laurent, I would like to hear from you just a bit about, why do you think, because you wrote a book, quite a creative way of writing a book about your experience so that your unique perspective could be expressed for others to learn from, or what, perhaps you could tell us why you did it and what is the concept of the book?
Well, thank you for the question. I guess it felt for me relevant to share about my experiences because I realized that what happened with me is not an isolated case. Mm-hmm. It's what happened to many other children and still happens today. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was at a very bad place, and it was very much in suicidal episodes and in depression, I was given so much support and help that actually allowed me to move on with life and to look at what happened with me when I was small, which I did not remember at all for most of my life. And when I was sort of getting better again, I felt it's really also my responsibility to give something back. Mm. And so I felt, why not sharing my story? Because I work in the arts, so I felt it would feel right for me to create, in that sense, a publication that involves paintings and drawings and my diary, basically sharing my process of healing. So the book is about, I would say the book is two things. The book is partly about sharing my experience of trafficking, how I was trafficked and what happened with me. But at the same time also sharing that there's hope. That even if you go through all these so painful experiences with many other children together, there's still a way eventually to heal and to have a life on your own. And I was very fortunate to see myself years ago in an environment that supported me so much that I was actually able to open up with all my pain and all that was carrying inside of me of guilt and shame, and to go through it, I would say, and to find healing. And so for me, basically, the book is my wish to contribute to society and to hopefully make a small difference with it.
Thank you for sharing that, Laurent. And you mentioned this sense of guilt and shame that survivors carry with them unless they get help. Is there enough help? I mean, is there even enough awareness about what happened to you? And you said it happens to other children, and that the needs that you would have to heal and build that resilience, to give back as you have.
I mean, guilt and shame is so widespread, we know, and I believe we all carry trauma on different levels, so I think guilt and shame is widespread. And to overcome it is a big challenge. I feel that talking about it and sharing stories is a really big step out of being feeling guilt and feeling shame. I think the worst is, to hide it and to stay small and not to show yourself. Because then, of course, guilt and shame stays with you. I mean, for me, this book came out 5 years ago in German, and now it came out in English. And I remember when 5 years ago, I was terrified to present it, because I felt, oh my God, like what did I do? But at the same time, it was such a beautiful experience to see how welcomed I was with my story. And I guess as a survivor, to be welcomed with your struggle, your pain, your suffering, with whatever you carry inside, is very healing. And I believe we all belong to something bigger. We all belong to society. We all belong, and we all contribute. We all do, with our stories. And this book is also a story, like we all share our stories. And I found that the way we can connect again, and also find it a way to go different places. I don't think you can heal all by yourself. I think you need to have this environment with you. And to refer also now more to your question, I think to listen to tragedies on media with all the numbers and statistics is what we became used to. But I think it just enters the rational mind, but it doesn't really go on a heart level. But I guess if you talk about storytelling, it's a completely different story. I feel this for me. And that's also the way I try to make the book, in a way of sharing how I felt. How did I feel as a 5-year-old, as a 2-year-old? And I think this is how we connect all together, by storytelling. I could imagine, like in the old days, we were all sitting, on a campfire, ideally sharing stories. And I think this is how we come together. And this, I think, if there was more storytelling, I wish there was also more acceptance of our individual trauma and how we wish to heal and how we wish to be seen.
Absolutely. I think I'm just wondering, Frey, how you would respond to what Laurent just said, because I know that you went through a lot of pain yourself. I'd love to hear in further questions about how you're trying to prevent others from going through what you went through, but maybe you could respond to what Laurent just said about the need to heal, the need to find community, and probably the need to recognize that you're not alone. So many others have gone through this as well.
Yeah, it's very important to find a group of people that you are comfortable with. For me, my journey has changed when I joined African Survivor Coalition, which is the best community, survivors community. I started to tell my story, and it's so private and confidential. When you speak to other survivors, they don't share your story everywhere unless you allow them. They don't coach you unless you allow them. So to have that safe space, it's very important, because multiple times people force me to go forward to the TV stations and different places to tell my story, and they were not worried about, re-traumatization. I'm always worried about re-traumatization, because when you are in a space where it's not safe for you, you get to re-traumatize. And that is the worst thing for survivors. If you are not ready to heal, it's okay. You can take your time. You don't have to rush. And especially in Africa, stigma is a huge thing. You get stigmatized in many ways. And when you become a woman and a survivor, there is a lot of still expectations from a woman. You have to get married, you have to have kids, and all these things. But still, you are on your healing journey. You are not ready, to be with anybody. So it can be so difficult. But I believe selecting a group of people that you want to work with, it's not about being a founder of a certain organization. You can be in a place, your own organization, but it's not a safe space. Sometimes these things happen, so it's very important to select with whom you share your stories with, because those people can, again, attack you with your own story and re-traumatize you. So it takes time to heal. But healing with other survivors, it's the best thing that I'm doing right now. And I'm so happy.
Wonderful. And I know, Laurent, you use art in your own healing. And art is a form of therapy, too. It's a recognized form of therapy. Can you talk about how the power of art and how it could help survivors of human trafficking heal?
I'm glad that you mentioned that it's a therapeutic form, because I think it is very much so. And very often I find this is often a big gap perceived between, or you're the artist and this person is doing therapy, and it's not the same. And I think it goes so much together, because it's all about process work, very much. But I would say, for me, to go into an artistic process is for me to go into your inner worlds. And basically you address what is lingering in the dark, and I think you put down to root all that is there in the practice in this artistic practice. And it doesn't matter whether it's painting or drawing or photography or dancing or singing. I think it's about working with the subconscious and the body. I believe you always know what you need to work on if you let this whatever you are, do it, and not try to control it, and not have the mind have it the last word. But I experienced, I never painted all my life, but then a friend said, when I was in this really difficult place, she said, why don't you just painting? And so I bought paper, I bought colors, and I started painting, and it literally came through me, out of me, and I didn't know what I was painting until it was done. And even then sometimes I had no idea what I had put on paper until maybe the next therapeutic session, and I realized what it was I painted. I think art is such a powerful way, and I feel that, I mentioned before what's lingering in the dark. I feel if you practice an art form, you give it a shape and you give it a form. And then you can start working with it because you gave it a shape. If it's inside of you, somewhere hiding or changing shapes, I think it's so difficult to deal with it because you feel overwhelmed constantly. But when you work with it, and let's say you have it on a piece of paper, you can look at it, you can work with it, you can share it with the world, you can show it to your therapist, to your friends. I find it so powerful because it also involves to go out with it into the world. And it's no longer just, hiding inside of you somewhere in the back. And for me, art is so much about communication. It's about sharing, again. And I always felt in my artistic practice that I feel there's always something that knows what needs to be done right now. And I cannot even explain what it is. It's just there. Maybe it's called an inner wisdom that knows perfectly well how to move on, what to paint, what to dance, what to sing.
Isn't that, in a way, what children do? When you see that children are always doing art.
Children are...
And actually, a writer I admire spoke recently about creative injuries that we all get as we grow up, which is basically teachers or parents or others telling you you're not very good at that.
Yeah,
and then you end up being put in a kind of box. And so you lose that expression, which is a very healing form of...
I think children are the greatest teachers in that, because they're just in the moment and they know exactly what they need to do.
Yeah, but you were hurt as a child, and now you are able to to heal through that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's wonderful. I wonder, Frey, Laurent was talking also about therapy, and I don't know how it is in Africa. You talked about stigma, and we were talking about healing. Is it possible to and accessible to get therapy?
Therapy is not very much accessible, and it's very expensive. So when I started Fanote, I did therapy by myself because I knew I was aware of my situation. So I knew that I need help in mental health to do this and to come forward. So it helped me a lot. So I tried to advocate so many times to have a mental health support from different organizations, but it's always overlooked. One of the reasons women or men doesn't come out as survivors because they are traumatized and there is no access to therapy, because you have to first cope up with what happened to you to begin with. You have to have some kind of professional help to cope up with what happened, because it's not easy when everyone around you doesn't understand you. You need someone outside of your community to help you cope up what is going on in your mind. And it's very difficult to have access. We try to help very few survivors, but it's so effective. Once they go for a therapy, some of them are even helping other survivors for free and volunteering. I saw a huge change after therapy. It works, I know, but it's very expensive in Ethiopia, even in East Africa. It's not easy to access. They have in the government hospitals, but it's not very effective. So we need more of, psychiatrists who work around, who can volunteer. Even in my office, when we work with the community, you get traumatized every single day because there are situations you'll not be able to solve, but you still have to work with that situation. So when you come back to office, most of my colleagues, also survivors, we get to be so depressed because we can do only so much. Like I can give them an advice and try to keep them, from being trafficked. But there are root cause. Like for women, doesn't have access to basic sanitary. So if I'm not able to solve those things, I get depressed when I come back. And when we ask for mental health support, we're not getting mental health support, but we need it. It's very important. For me, I start healing after therapy.
I think you just pointed to something because you are giving back now. You have founded an organization, and you're doing two things, it seems. I was going to talk about the work that you do to prevent what happened to you, and maybe you could just give the just broad strokes about what happened, so that it doesn't happen again. But you're also advocating for those who have gone through trafficking and managed to get out, managed to escape, managed to survive, that they need therapy and the help and the support, so that they can rebuild their lives. But maybe you can start with, why did you found this organization, and what specifically are you trying to prevent? Maybe so that people can avoid what happened to you.
Yeah, I went back home after 9 years from Middle East. So when I come back,
9 years you were there.
Yeah, I was in the Middle East for 9 years. So when I come back home, it was at the time of COVID-19. So I went back. I have one son. I'm a mother. So I see a lot of women struggling, and a lot of people returned back from Middle East at that time. So what I did was I went to the nearest government office, and I asked them, I want to help returnees from Middle East and survivors of human trafficking. I want to get involved. I want to share my story. I want to help in policy making. You don't have to pay me, just call me when there is an event. And that was a new thing for them. They said there's nothing like that, but if there is, we will call you. Then what happened is, after maybe a couple of months, I get a call and say, you know what, there is an organization who wants people like you. I said, okay. I went back to them, and apparently the Freedom Fund want to form a survivor-led organization.
The Freedom Fund. If you can just explain what that is.
It's an international organization that helped me to form FNOT. We are being funded by them. So I started working. I took training. They gave me training how to advocate, how to heal, how to meet other survivors. And I met my co-founders, another 4 women. So we realized that to be with other survivors, it will empower you somehow. You feel better. And you know that you are not the only one, especially when it comes to Middle East. There is a lot of women, especially the abuse and the trafficking status the moment you reach there, when they took your IDs, your passports, and you immediately fall into exploitation. And
so you think you're going for a job, an actual job where you will be paid, and then you can earn some money, send money back home, and what happens instead?
When I went to the Middle East, I thought what I have been told was completely different. I will be working 8 hours, and I will have insurance, medical insurance, and I will have accommodation, transportation, all these things. But when I reached and when I saw the accommodation, it's not even better than back home. So it was very isolated, and I worked more than 14 hours, sometimes 16 hours. And by the time I went back to the accommodation, it's already 3, 4 in the morning. And again, in the morning, 6 o'clock, you have to queue to take a shower because it's very hot and you need to take a shower. So maybe you take a rest a couple of hours. And it's very difficult. And I started to have some breathing issues because of the AC inside the shops. It was a retail shop. And because of the dust from the clothes, and I started to get sick. So I thought, okay, I have my insurance, so let me go and, get a medication. But those insurance cards are just cards. You still have to pay. So I was spending more than half of my salary for medication. And if I miss work, of course, usually I miss work because I get sick, and my salary will be deducted. So in the beginning, for 6 months, all my money was going to, medical expenses. And on the top of that, sometimes accommodations are not safe. So when you go back to your accommodation, you feel like, okay, you've been told these places are safe. but you always have to look out for yourself, because maybe security guards, in my case, have the access for the accommodation, where he starts to go into my room and assault me. So when you raise these kind of things, to begin with, I don't have my passport in my hand. So where can I complain? Where can I go? That is the big issue. Sometimes in reports we see that women missing in the Middle East, but we are not missing. We are not registered anywhere. We are only registered from our country. But in the destination country, if I don't have my passport, how can I go to the police? Because I'll be worried they will send me back home. So these things, I try to advocate some systems.
How did you get escape?
For me, it took me, I think, more than a year to get my passport back, because I keep on asking, I want my passport back, I want to go back home, or I want to look for another job. But you're not allowed. You need to finish your contract. This is a must, because you went with contract. But the contract said after 3 months, you can change your job. But when you reach there, that's not the case. And even if you have your own money, let's say you want to buy a ticket, you don't have your passport. So there is no way of escaping. So this is modern slavery. If I'm not be able to do anything, I don't have my rights, I don't know my obligations. That means I don't have access to anything, or justice or protection. So it was hard, but finally I managed to get another job, and I had to beg for my passport for 3-4 months. And it's very difficult.
When you hear this story, Laurent, how do you react? And
I find it heartbreaking to listen to you, very much. It also shows me how privileged I was. All that I was given, all that was provided for me. It was, of course, my decision to go these places and to heal, but I had the opportunities all around me to take them. And that's a very different reality. So it's painful to listen to what you just said.
And I mean, this human trafficking comes in all different forms. I think your experience was much different. I mean, what should people be aware of? Like, what should people be doing to prevent the different types of forms? And in your case, I guess you were a child, so there was nothing you could have done.
I was very small when it started, and it went for a really long time. And I guess what I can share is that, all these children that, let's say in the environment that I was in, these kids had a normal life. They were in school or in kindergarten, normal life in brackets. And then they had this other life that was completely off the record. And very often, and actually usually that's the case, these kids don't even know what happens to them on the side when they're in school or when they have this official life as a child. As I didn't know, I had no idea. But obviously these children have a very odd behavior. They're overly sexualized, they behave differently, they're very aggressive, they usually isolate themselves, and they usually have a hard time making friends. I was not clean for many years. But no teacher, no person in kindergarten, would, at least not that I remember, would have called the police or would have, talked to anybody about me and saying, look at Laurent, he's behaving really oddly, maybe we should look into this. And I believe this might have changed now over in these last decades, but I believe there's a huge fear maybe to get involved into something that people don't want to get involved in. I guess people sense, I believe, especially people that work with children, sense if a child is not really in a safe place. But, maybe you have your own trauma, your own childhood, maybe you have your own issues in the family that you didn't really want to look at it deeply. So I guess when you get affected by, let's say you work in kindergarten, you see a child behaving oddly, I don't believe you can open up to the suffering of a child and not look at your own thing. You cannot be selectively empathetic and vulnerable. If I open up my heart to a child that I see suffering, I need to open up to whatever there is also in my own life. And I feel that this can feel scary. And that feels to me the reason why maybe often people, I don't think they look away because they don't want to look at it, but maybe they're just scared.
Yeah. It
it's
sounds like you know a lot about human nature.
I think it's about Doris box, when you open it, it's open. That's it, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting analysis about why people don't act, even if they see things. And I think I've often heard about human trafficking as being this invisible, you were just describing, Frey, being completely just you powerless, and that sense of powerlessness, not having an identity because your passport was taken away, and not having basic rights. That is something I know that what you do in your organization is try to raise awareness around that, because when you're in that situation, it must have been so frustrating that you see people everywhere, but they don't see you.
People make it seem like it's a normal thing. When I ask, everyone is saying they took everybody's passport and it's happening to everyone. So what is so special about you? Why are you asking? At that moment, all of my colleagues and the people I know, when I say, I don't have my passport and these things are happening to me, they are saying, it's happening to everyone, especially from your country. So you already knew what will happen when you arrive. So you don't have to question these things. You already know the rules of the destination country. So I was feeling bad. I didn't tell this story for a long time. I didn't tell anybody because they make me feel like it's a normal thing to go through this. Then when I started to learn and read and connect with people, it's not right. Even if it is being done to million people, it's not right. I said I have to advocate for this. I have to advocate for my people, because it's not the right thing. Because it's being done to everyone, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. So this is how...
Absolutely the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's we have this forum here, why UNODC is advocating so strongly, but also to change the laws and the policies, because it comes down to that. I mean, there have to be preventative measures in society. It's criminal. But do you have any success stories? Because when we were having our kind of pre-conversation, you told me that you spend a lot of time, you and your colleagues, who are all survivors, going to schools, because that's the age where it all starts, high school, where the kids are the most vulnerable to the kinds of, I assume they're like online ads that say, you could earn lots of money, come to this country. What is it that they're susceptible to, and what do you teach them?
Usually in the area we work, there is a lot of illegal brokers, because it's around the bus station where everyone, it's the middle of the city in Addis Ababa, where everyone from other regions come and look for a job. And even the brokers, they go around schools around that area. So it's very easy to grab any teenager, and even younger than a teenager. So
it's like billboards, or...
They just approach them.
Oh, people come.
Yeah. Physically, they approach them and talk to them. We can give you a job, a better job. You can go to Europe. You can go to Middle East. And if you ask me, when I was like 12, 13, people might do that to me, and they might tell me something I believe. They told me when I was 21, and I believed them. And imagine if that was done to me younger, I will be most probably fall into, again, to the wrong hands. So
they're approaching people as young as 12 and 13.
Yes, they're approaching the young kids. So what we do at the schools, we don't talk about regular migration at all, because we don't want to give them an idea that they can go somewhere. So what we do is we usually give them awareness that they need to finish their school. It's not their responsibility to think about their parents, how to feed their family, because in government schools, they are from low-income families. So they feel like they have the burden to look after their young siblings, or to look after, especially the girls. They have the feeling that they have the responsibility to look after their family. But we always educate them, aware them, they need to finish their school. And if they want to help their parents, their families, it's okay. But they need to finish college, they need to finish university, and they get a better opportunity. And they will be aware of the world by that time, because the children, especially the girls in our community, they are still young, and the community doesn't even have the basic awareness of, menstruation cycles, things like that. So they stigmatize them. So they are always pushed to go away. So when I always tell them, you need to stay home and you need to finish your education, they always say, I don't even have money for basic sanitary pads. So how can I stay home? Mm-hmm. I'm expected even to take care of myself. So we'll always try, most of the time, from out of our pocket, we give them money for pads and sanitary materials. We try to help them, not many, but few. We try to keep them in school, because that is the first thing they should do. They shouldn't think about even leaving the country because they are still young. Any opportunity will not make them successful because they are very young. So always we are trying to educate them, stay in school, and if you have to work within the country. When you reach 14, the country has a rule. You can go and work anywhere within the country. So maybe around them they can have something part-time they can do, even involve themselves in study groups. Mm-hmm. And they have, some of them we have established anti-trafficking clubs. So we always motivate them to work on those clubs, and we can provide like small things so they can be motivated to stay in the school.
That sounds like you've probably prevented a lot.
Yeah, within the past 1 year, we try to help around 10,000 students.
10,000 students.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah, we try to do that. And within the community, we have campaigns, and we cover areas with 50,000, 60,000 potential migrants. So, yeah, we're doing...
Very well done. That's so inspiring. Just say again the name of your organization.
Fenut Charitable Association.
Fenut.
Yeah, Fenut.
Fenut. So maybe we can put that in the chat so everybody... Do you have a website?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. And a way to give?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably you need donations.
Yes, we do.
Well, it's a very good cause. So if anybody feels that they could donate, that would be wonderful. And Lauren, I think we're running out of time, but if you have a final message that you would like to share, is there anything you'd just like to react to? I saw you were nodding, and what could be done. You're from Europe. Everybody, people think bad things don't happen in Europe.
These are stereotypes, of course. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I loved listening to you, and I also felt this is again about getting together and supporting each other. And I guess this is what I also find in my life, in my environment, most valid, that we connect and support each other, that we see each other and share stories. I think this is something that I think is universal in my belief.
That is, it is. And there are too many people in our world that have been exploited. And there are so many of these situations that we can prevent. And I'm sure with your storytelling and your art and your book and with your advocacy, you are going to save so many lives. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. And thanks to all of you for watching today, live here from the UN in Vienna at the UNODC Forum.